Hello and welcome to Financial Perspectives, a CFA Society San Francisco podcast, where we interview and discuss trends with leaders from across the investment and finance industry. This month, our host, Tanya Subatang, Membership Director with CFA Society San Francisco, had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Sylvia Kwan, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Investment Officer at Ellevest. Listen in as they break down the great wealth transfer and its profound implications for the investment industry.
So I want to address our listeners before we get started today, because this is not just a very momentous, but very exciting episode for me. So for many of you who's been listening to our podcast since season 1, you might know who our guest is. And for those that don't know, Sylvia was actually my very first guest in this podcast. So I am so thrilled to have her back. So Sylvia, welcome to our new and improved podcast, Financial Perspective. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tanya. It's so great to be here. And it is hard to believe where we started. I think it was during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast again.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a pleasure. And, we speak not just through the podcast, but we speak outside of this too. So it's always very exciting to have a great friend come back on and share your expertise and insight. And yeah, that was back in season 1 and we are now in season 5. Can you believe it? Wow. Insane.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So obviously you are the CEO and CIO of Ellevest, and March is a very important time because it is commencing International Women's. So what today's conversation I want to talk about is the great wealth transfer. So when we talk about shifts in investment and finance industry, many do talk about what that great wealth transfer is. And to set the background of our conversation, I'd love for you to briefly explain what that means. And not only that, but what does that mean to you as the CIO and CEO of Ellevest?
At Ellevest, we're very excited about the great wealth transfer. So the great wealth transfer refers to the ongoing transfer of accumulated wealth from basically one generation to the next. And in our case, it would be from the baby boomer generation down to the next few generations. I believe that what many miss about the great wealth transfer is a lot of those funds will be going first to women as surviving spouses and then to the next generation. Actually, I recently saw a report just a couple of days ago that Cerulli Associates estimates that $124 trillion is expected to change hands by 2048. I had seen previous numbers like around 84 million. So this is the first time I've seen 124 trillion.
Wow.
And the same report really showed that women will benefit disproportionately and are estimated to inherit about 70% of that wealth over the next 25 years. So about 54 trillion will go to surviving spouses, of which 95% are women, because women, as we know, generally live longer than men. And another 47 trillion will go to women in younger generations. So clearly both of those figures, and certainly together, are amounts that well surpass the US GDP. So for Ellevest, we feel since our focus is very much on helping women build and manage wealth, we are already seeing beneficiaries of the great wealth transfer coming to us. And so we're very excited because we believe we are very well positioned to serve these women. In many cases, these women will be managing their money independently for the very first time. For many women, especially in the older generations, they have delegated all of the finances and the investing to their husbands, for example, and this will be the first time that they will be managing it on their own. And so we stand here ready to help those women really navigate, perhaps for the very first time, how best to manage their finances and invest. So we're very excited about this opportunity that's coming to this industry.
And in your experience, comparatively speaking, how are these beneficiaries investing differently? And are they gravitating toward a specific type of investment?
Yes, I believe both women and the younger generations do view investing a bit differently than the current older generation. So first, speaking about women, what we heard from women is women really see investing as a means to achieving financial goals. So it's not just about beating the market, beating the S&P 500. It's really how am I investing that money and how is that investment going to help me accomplish my financial goals, whether that's a legacy, charity, children, or a comfortable retirement. Both women and younger generations also want to be more intentional. And we see that not just in investing, but certainly from, spending their money, who they decide to support with respect to businesses, but it is quickly flowing into investing. And so obviously they want financial returns. We all, of course, want those, but they also want their investments to better align with their personal values. And to the extent possible, they want those investing dollars to be able to also generate positive social and environmental impact. So they want to support climate solutions, for example, or affordable housing and things like that. So they're very, very interested in kind of this area of impact investing. I'm also seeing, you asked about whether they are gravitating towards a specific type of investment. And I've seen a lot of studies showing that younger generations are feeling less confident about the traditional 60-40 portfolio that has worked so well, I would say, for the baby boomer generation. And so they're very interested in alternatives, investments outside of the 60-40. And we see them definitely embracing more, private investments. Younger generations are obviously also more technology savvy. They grew up with technology, much more comfortable with digital investing platforms. And we're seeing certainly a high growth in those kinds of platforms, not just for traditional investing, but also for investing directly into alternative type of investing. And so I think the younger generations are very comfortable. Many of them are do-it-yourselfers. And they have today, through technology, the opportunity to invest in a very different way than the earlier generation.
So obviously great business practice for firms and companies to always adapt to industry shifts. What do you think firms and companies can do now to prepare and set themselves up for success as we enter this new era?
Since I just talked about technology, I think definitely one of the things firms should do is really get more tech savvy. And so the old, tradition of, having clients come to the office, every quarter to go through portfolio reviews, that may not work as well for the younger generation. They're busy. They're used to, Zoom calls, for example, or they're used to, seeing things on their phone or their tablet and may not kind of need as much of that in-person contact and may not value it as much. So I think having really top-notch technology will be important to this generation. And I think, as I thought about the younger generations in particular, I believe that personalization is going to be really important. And so when I think about all the personalization that we have, all of us have, from, customized clothing to, all kinds of, shoes, et cetera. I mean, you can order, shoes with certain colors and styles and sizes. And, there's a lot of things, especially through technology, that has made personalization possible at scale. And so I think that will bleed and has bled certainly into investing as well. And we see a lot of firms offering direct index portfolios, for example, that can be very personalized to a client's, financial circumstances and preferences, and even, leading into alignment with their values. And so I think more and more personalization as opposed to, having a set of model portfolios and kind of trying to slot everybody into, one of 10. I think this generation will very much value something that feels more personalized to them. And then the third, I guess, the last couple of points I would make on this is, ones that I'd mentioned before. I think firms need to look beyond stocks and bonds, given the interest in this generation and kind of their growing lack of confidence that a 60-40 is going to get them there. So I think firms really need to start embracing, if they haven't already, alternatives as being part of a well-diversified portfolio. And then lastly, really looking at, how can, to the extent there are clients who really want to align their investments with their values, how can I create a portfolio that helps them achieve that?
Wow, that was a wealth of insights. Thank you for sharing all that. Now, before we say goodbye, I'd love to hear your investment outlook over the next decade, but also in the spirit of International Women's Month, do you have any advice or guidance you can share with our female listeners?
That's a really loaded question there, Tanya.
I like to end it with a bang.
Yes, exactly. Wow. I mean, we have had so much volatility and action in the last weeks, months, couple of months. And when you said the next decade, I was like, wow, I can barely keep up with all the news that is kind of coming out, on a daily basis and, getting a little whiplash here. So definitely thinking about the next decade actually, I think is puts things into perspective in some sense, because that then causes me to zoom out because, obviously investing hopefully for most of us is really a long-term endeavor. And so it is very difficult, of course, as humans to, tune out some of the noise and to think of what's happening now as not permanent. So I rarely in fact, I never make predictions because predictions are nearly impossible. But that being said, I know, and I think people will agree that we are certainly in for plenty of volatility, at least in the short term to come. My advice, though, and when I think about some of the differences that I see between how women approach investing and how men approach investing, and just, I would say, even life in general, women are great planners in general. I'm speaking very generally here. And so I think that bodes well for long-term investing. If you, and it's not just women, but make sure you have a plan for your investments, preferably a long-term plan, and then stick to it. That has really proven to contribute to long-term success. And so you're not kind of buffeted by all of the short-term news and the noise that's going on, as long as your portfolio is well diversified, not only across stocks and bonds, but perhaps select alternatives as well that kind of help offset the risk of stocks and bonds. It will be much easier to stick to that plan. So number one, have a plan. Number two, stick to it.
Great advice. And that advice is not just for investment, right? It could come across in many different facets. So
absolutely.
Yeah. But Sylvia, always a pleasure to have you. Always love our conversation and sharing your insightfulness. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you to this month's guest, Dr. Sylvia Kwan, for sharing her insights into navigating the great wealth transfer. Join us next time for another Financial Perspectives episode airing on the last Tuesday of the month. We love hearing from our listeners and want to hear what you thought of this episode and any topics you'd like for us to cover. Send us a message using the link at the top of each episode description or email us at podcast@cfa-sf.org. Thank you for being a dedicated listener. This podcast is produced by CFA Society San Francisco, a not-for-profit professional association providing professional learning and career resources to over 13,000 investment industry professionals worldwide. To learn more about CFA Society San Francisco, visit our website at cfa-sf.org or connect with us on LinkedIn.